The following is a presentation of SIRTOBA Media and COMI Media Incorporated.
Welcome, one and all. It's that time again. We're back for Total Football Talk Extra. I am your host, Drew Willingham, and we are back for, I believe this is episode 17. 17 straight weeks of Total Football Talk Extra action as we are back a little bit later than what I normally do here on Fridays. I was waiting for an Amazon package to come through. Shout out to Amazon. I got what I needed. The last of the things, last of the things before the holiday season is here. As the holiday rush is here. December 20th, we are live for football action. We have to talk about the games from this past Monday night. There were two games this week, as well as the game from last night with something we haven't seen in 48 years, since 1976. We'll break all that down and more on this edition of Total Football Talk Extra. So those of you watching this, whether it's live within the multi-platforms of COMI Media, SIRTOBA Media, or if you're watching this in a replay, thank you as always for tuning into this program and the others as well between COMI Media and SIRTOBA Media, mainly the Total Football Talk Project, which we have on Mondays between myself and Cole Johnson. And in this project right here with Total Football Talk Extra, shout out to Ryan McCarthy, who is our guest host during the remainder of the CFL season to kick this show off. And shout out to the guests that we will have in the future, as right now just trying to keep this show going as far as this particular project right here until the end of the NFL season to cover the games that Cole and I cannot get because we go live on Monday mornings into the early Monday afternoons. But with all that being said, thank you as always for tuning in. Let's go ahead and take this into the opening drive where we actually recap those games that I just discussed.
All right, let's go. We got trips, right? At 42, 989. On two. Ready? Hey!
Yes, with that being said, we've got two games on Monday to look back, but three games altogether. Let's go ahead and take into the Monday proportion of this. And here with the Monday night review, we have to take a look at two games. There was the Chicago Bears traveling to Minnesota to take on the Vikings, and that was at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern time this past Monday. And the second game was the Atlanta Falcons traveling to Las Vegas to take on the Raiders, and that was starting 30 minutes later than the first game. And looking at that, there were a lot of implications that were being made before the game. And as a result of that, we saw a change after this game, that being the second game between the Falcons and the Raiders. And there's a lot to go through with that, as my microphone has been taking a beating since I relocated the studio section. But when it comes to that, let's go ahead and take it into the first one. And that being the Chicago Bears, as they got mollywopped in this division game 30-12 by Sam Darnold and the Vikings. Looking at it for what it was, they are at home. The Vikings are. They have been rocking and rolling throughout this season. And, with a 12-2 record, 2 losses only for the season, you have to give them credit for what they've done. And they took their credit and ran with it in this game against the Bears. They started off with a field goal, a 52-yard field goal by Will Ricard to go up 3-0 in the first quarter. Then after that, when you look at the following part of this first quarter, Justin Jefferson takes in a 7-yard pass from Sam Darnold with 5 minutes and 4 seconds left. Another Ricard kick takes it to 10-0 for the Vikings. The Vikings would score again in the second quarter with only 4 seconds left. Well, I guess you could say the first half altogether with only 4 seconds left. They go up 13-0 going into halftime. Even though it's only a 2-possession game with it being 13-0, you got to think this game is definitely in the hands of the Vikings from the jump. Going into the third quarter, Cairo Santos says no, sir, as he kicks a 29-yard field goal to go up to decrease the deficit of 13-3 at this point, as the Bears finally get on the board with 7 minutes and 2 seconds left in the third quarter. Aaron Jones Sr. takes in a 1-yard carry for another touchdown for the Vikings to go up 20-3 with 1 minute 38 seconds left in the third quarter. My apologies. Not the first, but the third quarter. Beyond that, you got to look into the fourth as the Bears finally would get another score on the board. Another field goal by Cairo Santos, 39-yard field goal to go and take the deficit to 2 possessions as they were only down 20-6. Cam Akers would add a field goal for the Vikings to take the lead up to 27-6 with 10 minutes and 14 seconds left in this game. After that, Keenan Allen would get the final score for the Bears, an actual real score besides a field goal. He would take a 16-yard pass from Caleb Williams. A failed 2-point conversion would have them reeling at 27-12. The Vikings would score another field goal with 1 minute and 12 seconds left in the game to increase the lead by 18 points. And the odds of them winning would continue to be in their favor as they would win by that final score of 30-12 for this matchup, for this divisional matchup, for a game that means a lot to the Vikings. Not as much to the Bears because they have played like dumpster Pelicans since the Hail Mary game. Sorry, Caleb Williams. Yes, my man JD made it happen with that Hail Mary play. But beyond that, when you look at this game, this review from this 2-game night, the first of 2, this one was pretty lopsided. The next one that we're going to talk about was pretty close, but there were some ramifications from this game. And the ramifications decided to be at the quarterback position for the Atlanta Falcons as a result of what happened in this second of 2 games for Monday night. The Atlanta Falcons traveling to Las Vegas, LV, to take on the Raiders. And this game again started at 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. And yes, this was definitely a game that you would not look at and say, it's going to be a close contest and it's going to be a high-scoring one of that. We would have thought that the Falcons would have been able to come in here and win easily by 2 touchdowns. I thought this was going to be the Kirk Cousins bounce-back game. I didn't think that the Raiders would play close enough to them to where the results of what we're going to talk about were actually going to be happening on that night. And in this game for the Falcons, they were only able to put up 15 points on the night. 15 points to the Raiders' 9 as the road team, a team that is coming into this game 6-7, playing underwhelmingly for the staff that you have for your team, bringing in Kirk Cousins for that $180 million deal, and so much guaranteed, over $100 million guaranteed, and you are getting the results. I mean, for the 4 games coming into this game right here, the previous 4 games for Kirk Cousins going into this game on Monday night, he had 8 interceptions in 4 games and no touchdowns. For looking at what you should have been getting out of him playing against a Raiders team that's obviously playing for Shadur Sanders or the top pick next year, you got to look at what's going on for this team right here. They are not going to come in here and score a bunch of touchdowns on you. This is Kirk Cousins' opportunity to come back from the previous 4 weeks and to prove that he is not only worth the money, but he is still a leader for the team. Well, he comes into this game, 8 interceptions in the previous 4 games, and lays a dud again, as he only throws for 112 yards on the day. 112 yards. 112 expletive yards. And I have to say expletive because this is not D Willy in the evening, and I cannot just freely say what I want and then have a button to edit it out while I'm editing. We are live, so I have to say expletive. Right now, you come into this game, you're playing the Raiders, You should get more out of Kirk Cousins. And what do you get out of him? 112 yards. 11 completions out of 17 passes. Well, for a rookie quarterback, that wouldn't be horrible if he had 11 of 17, but he should be putting up more than 112 yards. For what you're paying Kirk Cousins in the previous 4 weeks, getting 8 interceptions, no touchdowns. And you get 112 yards playing against a team like the mother-fathering Raiders. God, getting animated right here. I got to calm down. Past the history, I cannot get so animated. So, yes. Woosah. Back Kirk Cousins. He had some good days with my team back in the day. Had some good days with the Vikings. And it looks like the Vikings made a good move by saying goodbye to Kirk Cousins over the offseason and not re-signing him. The Falcons are going to be giving him a lot of money, and especially if he doesn't end up playing, I can see a situation like Russell Wilson in his future, but we'll get to that because we're not even done reviewing this game yet. So again, 11 of 17 for 112 passing yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, total for the game. So for the past 5 games, Kirk Cousins has had 1 touchdown, which came in this game in the 5th one, and 9 interceptions. We'll get back to that in a minute. The rest of this team, the production got wasted. I wouldn't say wasted because they won. I mean, they won, I would say, based on the production of their running back, Bijan Robinson, who on 22 carries brought up 125 yards on the ground. So the establishment of the run, the flow of the offense was going exactly how it should have been through the running game because, you look at teams that are winning in viable playoff positions beyond just clinching the division. And I'm talking about those 3 wild card spots. Those 3 teams right now on paper who are in those 5th, 6th, and 7th seeds. Right now, if the season ended, including Washington, they all have been able to establish the run this year. Teams that cannot establish the run, and in the past, like the Bills before this year, I mean, Cook it basically been a really good pickup for the Bills, but this year is starting to really pay dividends. When you can have a running game, being able to manage the clock, being able to eat time off, and not just score like 3 touchdowns in the beginning of the game and then still lose because you can't manage the clock in the second half and run the ball. These are the teams that can win games, and that's why the Falcons are still at a decent record at 7-7 at this point. And it's all based on Bijan Robinson. The reason why they are 7-7, there are some games where Kirk Cousins played really well at the beginning of the year, but it looks like he didn't have enough time to rehab or his older age as far as being an athlete is catching up to him. Just like in some cases, we could say the same in New York for Aaron Rodgers. This has been more of a decline, I would say, in Kirk Cousins' case, because in Kirk Cousins' case, he literally just doesn't look like he has any zip on the ball. So looking at it for what it is, when it goes to Aaron Rodgers, when it goes to Kirk Cousins, even though one is 4 years older than the other, because I believe Kirk Cousins is only 36, it's pretty steep decline in 5 weeks. And it's only because the weather's getting colder outside. I don't mother father and think so. Now, when you put it all into perspective, Kirk Cousins in this game could have cost them the game with that 1 turnover. I don't think the Raiders were going to let that happen. And if it wasn't for Drake London making that play that he did in one of his 3 receptions to get that touchdown for Kirk Cousins, he would have gone 0 for 9 in 5 weeks. So, looking at it for what it is, Kirk Cousins in the second game of this 2-game night for Monday Night Football, I would have to say was my Dumpster Pelican player of the game, if I were to pick a Dumpster Pelican player of the game. And we already know what a Dumpster Pelican looks like. And for that, I'm going to flip it on over to the Total Football Talk side, to that side of the clips here. Bring myself up here on the Total Football Talk side. And click a specific award for him, that being Kirk Cousins. And this right here, number 1 Dumpster Pelican. Look at that beak right there. Look at the beak on old Kirk Cousins, the beak on that far right side. As even though his team won for 5 consecutive weeks, Kirk Cousins has given them an... Usually a 6-point game I give a lot of kudos to, but this game altogether was just totally. I mean, do you blame me? Do you blame me whatsoever for feeling this way? You can say the same for the first game between the two of this 2-game night on Monday Night Football. They both were bull and shoe ugly. But in my opinion, with the way Kirk Cousins played, this one right here was the most dumpster pelicanist of all the games this week between the three that we've seen so far, between the last two for week 15 and the one we're going to talk about next for Thursday night football. And with that being said, we're going to go ahead and take this into the Thursday night football transition. And not the grand champion of the week, wrong button. This right here. Thursday night football back on the screen, back in action for this week for episode 17 of Total Football Talk. And thank you to those of you who are tuning in live or during the replay, as through 17 episodes, this has been a staple of the Total Football Talk family for now over 4 months. For 4 months and a week. This is what's been going on with the TFT Extra 2.0. And when it comes to that Thursday night football, we got to take a look at the Denver Broncos and the Los Angeles Chargers. And that's why, right here, the Chargers make first fair catch kick in the NFL since 1976. And this was to end the first half, ladies and gentlemen. This right here, you can argue it was the beginning of the momentum shift for this team right here on Thursday night football between the Broncos and the Chargers, as the Broncos were pretty much smacking around the Chargers in the first half. I mean, they weren't molly-whopping them by a lot of points, but what they were doing was they were beating them on the ground, and they were beating them not only on the ground but in the air. I mean, they were doing what they were supposed to. Bo Nix was not turning the ball over, and on the day he completed 29 of 40 passes for 263 yards and 2 touchdowns. I mean, not only he had the will to will himself through this and get this win, but the Chargers on the other side were saying, no, I don't think so. As the one that had the real willpower here was Justin Herbert, as this team would come back and win 34-27 by the end of this game right here. And you look at it, Herbert, 23 of 31 for 284 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception. The 1 interception did not cost him because Gus Edwards, throughout the majority of the game, first half into the second before he got hurt, 14 carries for 68 yards and 2 touchdowns on the day. Looking at that for what it is, Gus Edwards is definitely a big part of this comeback for the Chargers here in the second half of this game. But also, looking at it for what it was too, Gus Edwards, between the first and the third quarter, putting up 2 of those touchdowns, he would bring the deficit to within 5 in the third quarter, but starting the game out, when we look at the first quarter, and before we get all that through with the third, Audric Estime, if I said his name right, I might have butchered it, but 3-yard run by this guy. They would take a 7-0 lead for the Broncos into the first quarter. Gus Edwards, as I was speaking of him earlier, the first of his 2 touchdowns would come in the first quarter to tie the game up at 7 with 3:09 left in the first quarter. After that, in the second, Michael Burton would score on a 1-yard pass from Bo Nix. Broncos would go up 14-7. Cameron Dicker would answer on the other side with a 37-yard field goal for the Chargers, as they would decrease the deficit to 14-10. Devon Vale, 6-yard pass from Bo Nix with a Will Lutz kick, would go up 21-10 for the Broncos. It was 6 minutes and 22 seconds left in the second quarter and in the first half. At the end, though, based on a penalty, Cameron Dicker would take with basically the first of since 1976. The first fair catch kick in the NFL since 1976 would take place with 0 seconds left in the first half, as there was a penalty on a kick return that would happen, and that's what would give them the ball and the opportunity in field goal range to kick the field goal and take this game into a 13-21 game. The Chargers will be down by 8 points going into the half, and coming into the third, Will Lutz would kick a 41-yard field goal for them to go up 24-13. The Broncos, with 8 minutes and 31 seconds left in the third quarter, were feeling like they were having this game in hand, but Gus Edwards would answer with the 5-yard run on the other side for the Chargers with 2 minutes and 58 seconds left in the game. They would only be down 24-19 on a 5-point deficit at that point. After that, Gus Edwards would get hurt shortly after this touchdown, but the team would still continue to roll as Darius Davis would take in a 19-yard pass from Justin Herbert. A Joshua Palmer 2-point pass from Justin Herbert would take this game into a 3-point lead for the Chargers with 12 minutes and 23 seconds left in the fourth quarter. With another 34-yard pass from Justin Herbert after that with 2 minutes left in the game, they would go up by 10 points, and the Broncos would answer with the field goal by Will Lutz with 57 seconds left. He would kick a 55-yard field goal, and at this point, they would go down 34-27, which would be the final score of this game because on a failed onside kick by the Broncos after that, the Chargers would get the ball, run the clock out, and that's how the game would end this past Thursday night. If I were to say it's really hard to give a dumpster Pelican award here because both teams played pretty solid in this game, in my opinion. So I'm just going to go ahead and say that there were no dumpster Pelicans in this game, and they played the best that they could. And if you feel bad about it, I mean, somebody had to take the Unfortunately, the Broncos did. They both had the same record by the end of this game at 9-6 with 2 games left for them to play. Both teams playing for the playoffs. Jim Harbaugh and, not only that, but Sean Payton and Jim Harbaugh are coaching these teams very well. It just goes to show that getting rid of Russell Wilson and letting him go to Pittsburgh definitely is paying dividends for both teams. It's just working well for the locker room over there in Denver. And it's working well over there in the locker room for Pittsburgh as well, as the man's having a resurgence as far as Russell Wilson goes. Because sometimes you just need to
stop it. Get some help.
And with that being said, we're going to go ahead and take this into our grand champ of the week because we have to announce the awards for who we have between these 3 games. Who's our grand champ and who's our snowflake? Let's go ahead and take it into the grand champ of the week and see what I've got in store for you for that one.
All right, let's go. We got trips, right? At 42, 989 on 2. Ready? Ready.
Total Football Talk Extra.
Where my dogs at? We have to bring up our dogs for this one. And when we speak of our dogs, we talk about our grand champ of the week. And for our grand champ of the week between Monday and Thursday nights, games between the 3 games, I'm going to go with Justin Herbert. Even though he threw an interception, it was 23 of 31 for 284 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns, and did have 8 rushes for 28 yards on the ground. He led the Chargers to a comeback win in Week 16 over the Broncos in a divisional game where both teams are playing for the playoffs. Because of his poise, because of him staying calm in this one, I got to give it to him for my choice for this episode for Total Football Talk Extras, Grand Champ of the Week.
Total Football Talk Extra.
Oh, yeah, it's that time for the Snowflake of the Week. And unfortunately, I have to give it to this guy, and I didn't want to, but I have to because of his performance, especially with how animated I got earlier in this program. Got to give it to Kirk Cousins. 11 of 17 completions out of attempts, 112 passing yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception. Surprisingly, I haven't picked him in these past 4 weeks because he did have 8 interceptions in the past 4 games. Now through 5 games in weeks 10 through 15. Kirk Cousins, 1 touchdown and 9 interceptions. And because of what he did in this past game, which ultimately led to what we're about to talk about next. This is why I chose him as my choice for Snowflake of the week. Unfortunately, that being Kirk Cousins, and unfortunately, I had to give it to somebody. With that being said, we're going to go ahead and take it into the post game where I talk a little bit more about the Falcons and Kirk Cousins.
As long as it's one.
I went to go find one yesterday, but I wasn't able to look at it tomorrow.
That's great.
So,
I love it.
actually, I was getting to
I didn't want to do this, but I have to. I mean, I didn't want to make that choice with Kirk Cousins, and I don't want to go on too much of a rant because I hate to say I told you so. I mean, Corey Mann and I talked about this, not because the injury really is so much, but we talked about the fact that Kirk Cousins are getting that money and the Atlanta Falcons, they were going to turn to Penix sooner than what we thought. And even though I predicted it to come a little bit earlier in the season, I think I said week 10, I'll have to go back and look at the footage. I'd said it was going to happen this year. And sometimes I don't like being right about things, but I just had a feeling this time it was going to be something similar to this case. You know, at least Kirk Cousins is healthy and has his faculties, and that's the most you can definitely ask for with playing at this point in your life at 36 in your mid to late 30s. You know, there's not many quarterbacks who have played late into their 40s. I mean, late into their 30s really well and consistently. And, you know, Tom Brady's an anomaly. You know, Brett Favre played well up until like 39, 40, and I think age 41 season was that really bad last year in Minnesota. You know, and you see what's going on with Aaron Rodgers, and you look at Drew Brees' last year in New Orleans, and there's a lot that you can definitely take away from seeing quarterbacks of the past. And I don't want to say that Kirk Cousins is done. Maybe because, I mean, the first, 7 to 8 games of the year, he was looking really well. It wasn't until weeks 9, 10, and then, of course, until this past week where he really dropped off. And because of what happened in that stretch where he threw 1 touchdown and 9 interceptions in the previous 5 games, the team turns to Michael Penix Jr. And Michael Penix Jr., the rookie they drafted in the first round, high up in the first round, the top 10 picks. This team takes Michael Penix to draft him for the future. And it looks like it might have been a smart move because this season could have been a total wash. Kirk Cousins could have got hurt again, which could have, affected you beyond this season. And I think that this move right here not only helps the Falcons, but it helps Kirk Cousins, whether he ends up going to a different team. At least in the case of like with Russell Wilson last year for Denver, sitting him down before the end of the year, you keep him healthy. It gives him a chance to get fully to 100 in health, and we'll see what, the 2025 season does. I think it would be funny if Sam Darnold goes and takes the money somewhere else. Minnesota realizes they need a little bit more time to give JJ not only time to fully heal from his past injury, his surgery and his recovery and his rehab, but also to get acclimated within the offense of Minnesota's team again. What do you say would be funny with just like with what happened with Russell Wilson this year? You make that move for Kirk Cousins in Minnesota next year, and you pay him like $1 million. If the Atlanta Falcons release Kirk Cousins this offseason and then pick him up in Minnesota for like a $1 million deal over there next year, because J.J. McCarthy may need a little more time to get the rust off from the rehab, may need a little more time to learn the team's offense because it might change a little over this offseason. And who do you know the best that was running your offense really well up until when he got hurt, who could come in and show J.J. McCarthy how to do it? I think that you bring Kirk Cousins back on like a $1 million deal like they're doing over there in Pittsburgh, and Kirk still gets his money. And that's if Atlanta wants to release him. I mean, they hold all the cards. But people are going to be talking about this. They're probably going to be listening and realizing, Denver's paying a lot of money over there for Russell Wilson still, but it's paying dividends because of their rookie quarterback. They've already got their quarterback. They've already got the weapons that they like. They still need to make some more moves. But what if they are pretty much okay with doing the same thing over there in Atlanta as, what they're doing over there in Denver, because it's paying dividends for them. They have a winning record. Atlanta's at 7-7 right now, but I'm talking about Denver's 9-6. So looking at it for what it is, if you're Atlanta, you're going to be thinking about that because you've already been thinking about certain things because you've already made the move to put Penix in, and now there's really no turning back because it's not like you're out of playoff contention and you're doing it to save Kirk's health for next year. There's still a chance for you. If you win these next 3 games, you could be in the playoffs, 10-7. So for what it is, I hope that the Atlanta Falcons made the right move here for my boy Corey Mann, because my man Corey is a big Atlanta Falcons fan, and I want him to see some success with that team, because for that Super Bowl debacle, I still feel bad for him, and I'm hoping that they can turn things around at some point in the future. But it's going to be a while before they become a team like the Detroit Lions, and that's just how it is out here in these streams. With that being said, that does it for Total Football Talk Extra number 17, episode number 17, out here covering Week 15's final 2 games on Monday night and Week 16's first game, which was last night on Thursday. Stay tuned this weekend for some NFL action on Saturday and Sunday. We've also got the college football playoffs kicking up this weekend as well. It actually is starting tonight, so I'm going to have to check that out here in a few, along with some wrestling, because I am a fan of that, and that's going on right now. I got the show going a little bit later than I wanted to, but hey, at least it is out tonight. Thank you to those of you who were tuning in live. It looks like I got it at a bad time tonight where we didn't really get a whole lot of traffic in here in the comments, but if you guys check this out in the replay, make sure you like, share, and subscribe to the channel. As always, hook me up with the like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so, whether you're watching on COMI Media, where they're making content magic happen in the real world, or right here on SIRTOBA Media, where the struggle is real to be mother-fathering awesome.
Surprise, motherfucker.
I don't think it's too much of a surprise, but y'all let me know how you feel out here in these streams. Thank you, as always, for tuning in. And with it being so close to the holidays, I will see you again on Monday for the last Total Football Talk episode before Christmas. And if I don't see you, if you don't catch these episodes between now and when we do the episode on Monday, hopefully everyone has a happy and very safe Merry Christmas. Thank you, as always, for tuning in. And as always, for the most important message that I have to you to end each and every single mother-fathering show, when it comes to life, when it comes to travel, when it comes to moving around outside, please, for me, for you, and for everyone that cares, please stay safe out here in these streets. You don't have to go home, but you got to get yourself on up out of here. And again, as always, happy holidays. And please stay safe out here in these streets.